What's up? What's up? Good morning, all. Happy Friday, happy weekend. It is here.
Woosah day. Woosah
Woosah.
day. Yes.
Woosah. Yeah, I had a woosah. I need a woosah week after this week. This has been a rough one, but we are here at the end of it. And what's going on? What's going on, peeps? What's going on?
Man, tell us how you living, what you doing, and of course where you coming in from. Because a lot of times we're always like, "Oh, where y'all from?
Yeah,
What y'all
yeah,
doing?"
yeah. Let us know what it is. Let us know what it is.
Yes. So I definitely want to say thank y'all. Credible Vulnerability Moments has expanded from a mini series. It's still going to be under the mini series title, but it's no longer like parts. We're just going to run and talk about a lot of the concepts that we've been doing. So from vulnerability, how to create the content for that, around that, and then, of course, digging deeper into how to create the sharing opportunities because sometimes we don't know what to share, how to say it.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to also show you how to implement that on your website. Carl is, I think you were my beta person without being my beta person, if that makes sense. So,
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I was
so
a beta.
just digging deep with how Carl was, and you guys already know he gets deep into how vulnerability has impacted his life and how he sees it for everyone else's life. So watching how his website has evolved and people are really understanding what he does as a vulnerability coach and a consultant. You see how Mr. Vulnerability is. So now you get to see it on his website and it's clear now. So I think if anything, he's a perfect prime example of seeing vulnerability in action. And he
Yes.
already has a blog which he's going to be adding to it, getting some tips for that, all that kind of good stuff. So we're making this credible vulnerability moments a long-term thing. This is what we're running with. And we're actually planning a couple of things on the back end where we're going to have events surrounding this because we heard the people said yes, this is a go. So
Yes, yes,
so
yes.
that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to listen to y'all. Isn't that
Yeah.
what we always say? Listen to the people. So we
Got to
listen
the
to the
peoples.
people.
Got to get the people
Oh
what they
Lord,
want. You know, that's
really?
that's for them old schoolers out there. Get their OJs
Oh,
and them OJs out there.
OMG. So yes, our
Oh,
Michigan, I think, is that Cassandra from Michigan? Uh Here, because it just says LinkedIn user.
let
So
me see
thank
what
y'all all
let
for
me see
always
what it is
coming
in
through. Yes,
Michigan.
yes, I see it. Thank y'all for coming through. And we're gonna jump in and dive in on this. And first,
Absolutely.
you know how we do, we jump into that myth buster. And let me
Yeah.
get it from here. The myth buster for today is vulnerability is not part of a strategy. It gets it's not hard to explain it of how why it's a strategy, but it is. It's a strategy, and you want to know how to properly um show your vulnerability, how to talk about your vulnerability. Sometimes depending on how we get into certain topics, it can be an emotional um uh I want to say a drama dump or something, or trauma dump, because a lot of times people get into spaces and they just blurt out everything, right? They say everything that's on their heart, or they might be upset and they get everything out. So it
Mhm.
becomes traumatic for others as well. It might be a triggering thing that you're doing and not realizing it because you're thinking you're just being you, but you're
Mhm.
not doing it right. So it's really understanding first what is that vulnerability that you're trying to share? How is that going to impact others? And then how are you going to share it? And what do
Yes.
you say, Carl? Because this is your brainstorm in your realm.
That vulnerability piece is, and I always use these terms, and every time that I talk about this, especially with those who have a fear of embracing strategically and intentionally. That alone, those two terms I use automatically relate to strategy. And being vulnerable is just that strategy, especially in the workplace and with leadership. How I always curate it with those that are potential clients or past clients that I continue to see. It is a cultivation, so it's a strategy that must be used. Therefore, if it's a strategy, It can't be associated with being a dump party because a dump party is not that. And it can't be
Right.
associated with oversharing because oversharing is not a strategy. Oversharing is just that, it's talking too much. So, like loose lips sink ships. I'm pretty sure
Uh
you guys
oh.
have heard that before, right? Yeah, that's a grandmaism. So we're gonna get that book written too, because grandma need her, she need her royalties. I'm using all her stuff. But yes, it's strategically and intentionally, and that's how I use vulnerability. That's how I practice it. I cannot. It's a feeling. It's a discernment. Whatever term you use,
Hmm.
it's intuition. Whatever term that you use that you're comfortable with using, that's what it is. You get a feel for the individual that you're talking to, that you're dealing with, and then you become the power because you get to initiate what pieces of that is going to relate. Shadow, you trying to make an appearance? Yeah, I see you back there, homie.
Child. You see him, right? You see, wait a minute. Can you see?
So you trying to make an appearance, and the Shadow, you got me all thrown off. I mean, I'm talking about vulnerability and appearance. You got me messed up.
Don't
But
mind him. Go ahead.
yes, but you go. If you're using that strategically and intentionally, the ultimate purpose of that is to move forward. That's what a lot of people don't understand with vulnerability. It's either to help you move forward or it's to help the person that you're dealing with that's stuck to move forward. And that's in the
Hmm.
situation or circumstance that they're in, and it avails them to see that there's an outcome beside
Right.
being dismayed about their situation. That's primarily the instruction of vulnerability. So when you embrace that, you are the embracer of the opportunity for others to come through. And though it may sound a little bit deep in that, it truly is. But with practice, it becomes what you initially do, and people become safe around you. And then you'll realize, yo, why is people telling me that? Because I had that for the longest, as young as a kid. Why are people telling me these kind of stuff? Like I don't know them. I don't need to know them. I have people sharing with me all kind of things. Grown ups, as I'm a kid, why are you sharing those kind of things
Hmm.
with me? I think it's a reception that a person gives off that lets them know it's okay to share things with you, and not necessarily all the time that I have the answers, but you provide a space where they can let go of some things that are holding them back, and also move forward in some things that they probably feared before. So it's very important, and strategically in business, it's dynamic because you being in that arena of that as part of a strategy, you allow others in to cultivate them what their need. You're understanding their need. Therefore, you can perform the service without wasting time and without wasting resources. So it's definitely a strategy. Sorry, Myth Buster.
So then, as you can see, that takes us right into the first way of you building your
Mhm,
credibility through using your vulnerability. And
mhm.
what you want to do is stay consistently about it. We're going to
Absolutely.
talk more about that too,
Ooh,
because
yes.
I know Carl brought a great story about someone who called them out a little bit, but not in a
Hmm.
bad way. They were like, "Oh, thank God, you didn't switch up on me." But
Yes.
the strategy about it is you don't want to think that you're not using your vulnerability in some way or fashion. You are. You
Mhm,
just want to make sure that the way you're doing it is not going to be traumatic to others. So you have to do it in a teaching standpoint.
mhm,
That to me, that's how it really always comes across in a good way, positive way. When you're using it to teach others something or you're using it so others can help you. That's another way to use vulnerability, especially in corporate. You want to say to others that, hey, you know what? I'm not that good at this. Maybe you can help me out. And that allows people to see you bring down your defenses a bit. And then they now can be the expert and showcase something to you, and you're picking it up and you're learning. And also part of that too is giving credit where you found it, right?
mhm.
So if someone helps you, give them that credit. Say, hey, yeah, I'm grateful for so and so. They really showed me how to do this, and I took it to the next level. That's how people show that they're learning from others, and that shows that vulnerable side, that you don't always have to be the person that, oh, I'm self-made, I raised everything, I learned everything on my
Mm,
own. And how
yeesh.
did you learn? You had to learn it from someone. Sometimes everything is not just you learned it out of thin air, like it just popped in your head. Not all the time. So you really want to make sure that you're also giving credit where credit is due. That's part of being vulnerable. What do you
Yes.
think, Carl?
It's definitely that, and you said something that's really key about it. how I can tell you to differentiate it is something that everybody has a receptor to understand. When you feel good about what you shared, that in turns let you know that your vulnerability is out there for others to receive. A lot of times when we share things, there's an uncomfortability that we feel after we've opened our mouth, and that is automatically your instinctiveness telling you that, nah, that probably didn't fit the situation. That probably was not what I should have shared, and that's probably something that would probably be taken incorrectly. So this is how you kind of get your ears perked, so to speak, about oversharing and differences in the vulnerability. And then when you see the vulnerability brings about connection. So if you're telling your story or share your story, and people are getting distant from you, or they're not receiving the message, more times than not, you're not bringing about the right message, and you're not sharing the right things. Even in sharing, you have to look at the places that you share as well. This is why I go back to the it's a strategy. You have to look at the places you share, the what you share, and the intention with what you share, because people are receiving that and they're listening to that and they're hearing that. Yes, a lot of people, as far as it being a buzzword, have committed to that since the pandemic, as far as saying they're
Mhm.
vulnerable, sharing vulnerable things. Now, the intentions of that often play themselves out along the way. So it's definitely in building credibility, it has to be consistent. Am I always someone that's continually sharing bad things happening to me? Well, if that's the case, everybody in the world can continue that. I picked up a mantra even as I was younger in sports. My coach used to tell me, and he used to ask me how you doing. I say ain't no complaints. And he used to tell me that all the time. He said, I just got in a month. I was like, how you had no complaints? And I'm just a young kid. I'm like, I had complaints. And he said, it's not that I don't. He said, I got in the consistent model of saying that. So when they do arise or things do come up, I'm in a position to handle them instead of complain about them. So he was saying to me, and that's how he fixed his mindset. And I was like, wow, I kind of took that. And now I say, when most people ask me, hey, how's it going? I got no complaints, because I really don't. And it's not saying that I don't have any. It's saying that my complaints are not nothing I need to put on you. So I won't share them with you. So when you understanding that on the strategic part about that, that's the same way with vulnerability. If they don't move you forward, I'm not sharing that. I share in places and points and situations where I say, okay, what I'm sharing is what they need, because there's a problem, there's a solution, and there's overcoming. So let me share this to let them know I was here, I got here, I did the work here, and now I'm here. That's what vulnerability does. And on the flip side of that, it shows people the need, the connection, the understanding, the empathy part of it. And that's everyone knows that, hey, yeah, okay, I got you. I got you. I can do that too.
Yes,
Yes.
I love that. And don't forget, folks, this is also a live Q&A. So if you had any questions about how you can do this, please feel free to drop that. You guys always do that anyway, but we just wanted to make sure that this show is specifically to answer questions pertaining to this. And it's
Yeah.
also a way for us to know more what is it that you really want to answer, have us answer, because a lot of these things that we put together, it was based on questions we get through different shows, because a lot of times our topics are kind of similar. So this whole show is really to showcase and highlight these in particular. But please feel free to drop them live. And I wanted to jump into the next one, because once you start to really understand that it's a strategy, you
Mm-hmm.
learning what the vulnerability is, because we talked about that earlier this month as well. Now you want to make sure that you are yourself. You are true to being who you are. And I saw a lot of you dropping these in the comments. Know thyself. You can
Mm-hmm.
be yourself and strategize how to do it once you understand how you want to move. Who are you? How who do you want to connect to, who's resonating with what you're saying. That way
Mm-hmm.
you're not chasing random thoughts and random people, because you already are paying attention to who is coming to you without you even trying. That's how you really
Yes.
know that, okay, these are the people who are your I don't know, your tribe, your audience. They listening to you because whatever's happening, they can see an alignment. So you want to make sure that you stick to that, and that way you don't have to feel like, oh, am I changing who I am to fit the narrative? Then you know that what you're doing is what you need to do.
Yeah, and it's consistently being you. It's not putting on a mask. It's revealing. It's unveiling. the mask.
Mhm.
It's letting people see the genuine you, and then seeing that you draw the genuine connection, and that's really what we all want, right? Humanity wants to be connected. We want to feel loved. We want to be valued. Just the simplicity of things, which are taken for granted every single time that we wake up. Those are the things that we want to be in and we want to see. So being vulnerable allows you to fulfill in that. It allows you to be who you truly are instead of putting up protective barriers. Now, don't get me wrong. There's also a flip side to that, and it's also points and places of that it can be abused and misconstrued by those that you deal with. Oftentimes, as I say on the science piece of that, there's senders and there's receivers. So in the essence of that being out there, we're all senders. Everyone's sender of vulnerability, whether they want to or not, whether they know it or not, whether they really understand what they're doing or not. We're all senders, but we're not all receivers because you've witnessed that. That's why the barrier part is there. That's why the defenses are there because people have shared things that people have came back and used to hurt them. People I've shared stuff people have come back and hurt me with. I'm not immune to that. But the immunity that I've taken from that is the ability that I grow. That's what's taken from that. I put more emphasis on growing from those things than I do from sitting and wallowing in those things. And that's a decision that we make. And again, I use those things, say, okay, what was in that? What did I not get from that? Why did I share this? What was the purpose behind that? What was my intention? Was it the intention to move me forward, or was it the intention to draw favor? A lot of things go into that when you share vulnerability because a lot of people misuse it. And oftentimes we see that as far as scams. That's how scams are so successful. They prey on people that are vulnerable to the situation they present. So the protection is definitely needed. But when you practice it, it becomes a perfection just like anything else. And when I say perfection, not perfect, but you come in operation of. So you say, okay, I feel that. I kind of know that. I'll share a little bit here. I'll share a little bit there. And it becomes a practice of then you can know when to turn on and off the faucet. You don't let the faucet run if you don't have a cup to fill up. You turn it off when the cup is full. That's how vulnerability is. You let it out a little bit, and when it's done its thing, you cut it off, and then you go back into your protector mode. So once you understand that, and which I have for so many years of dealing with it, once you understand that, and yes, it is teachable, but it's teachable through practice and work. It's not teachable through writing down on a pen and keeping it in a notepad. It's actually
Mhm.
intentionally doing it and putting
Yeah.
yourself in those positions to build up resilience. And that's how we do it. We do it when we're talking. We do it when we arguing with people. We shut down. We built up resilience around everything we want to build a cage and lock it up, and that really doesn't serve us well.
Yes, and we have a question that kind of leads into that too. What is your favorite approach to building that intimate trust through vulnerability? I'm gonna let you take the lead on that one.
Listening, listening. That is the pasture, so to speak. That's the soil of vulnerability and receiving it, listening, because if someone's sharing with you, that's what they want to hear. And a lot of times we listen not with the heart, because I always say that I talk about that a lot, because that's how I listen. I listen with the heart, and most people do not. Most people listen with the response. And when I say that,
Mhm.
they heard what you said, they didn't gather enough to think they have an answer, and they provide it. They're not listening with the heart. So I innately listen. I think I wrote a post about that a couple of years back. When I'm listening to you, I listen with the heart, and discernment has the answer. And then saying that is just understanding that what you're truly speaking, you may not be fully speaking, but listening to your heart and the words that you speak give me an understanding of what you're truly saying. Now, is there rocket science to that? No, it's not. But it's a little bit of practice. It's a little bit of spiritualness. It's a little bit of all of those things entangled. So my favorite approach and the most fluent and approach that I've ever had was just listening to people, because people want to be heard. And when you go in the dictionary and see what the term heard means, heard ties into understanding what is being said. So for you
Right.
to understand something, yeah, because you hear people all the time, yeah, I hear you. You hear noise. Where my scientist at, Carla? You hear noise,
Yeah, the
right?
noise.
When I hear you, you hear noise. You're not receiving what I'm saying. You just, I hear you. Like somebody called my name. Yeah, yeah, Carl. Yeah, I hear you. What they're saying is that I heard you call my name, but I'm not listening for anything else after that. And what we have to get into is people to be profound with vulnerability and practice. We have to listen innately. What are they really saying? one of the biggest things that we say, and I get this to you after this, Charlene. One of the biggest things that we say that gives us the greatest opportunity to listen every day is when we ask somebody how they doing. The next time you ask somebody how they doing, stop, pause, wait for an answer, wait for a response. Not only will you surprise yourself, you'll surprise them. Because we often say how we doing in passing. And when I say in passing, you may not leave the area, but you asking for in passing. How you doing? Or you expect them to say great. You don't expect nobody to tell you how they really doing. You really don't. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. Let somebody start saying something beside I'm doing okay, I'm doing fine. And your
That
attention
part.
gonna be like, oh, yeah, really? So you're gonna start cutting them off, you know. So that's your greatest example of being a listener, and that's the greatest approach that you can have. If you're listening to people, people can sense that genuineness and that you genuinely want to hear and care about them, and that opens the floodgates of the connection, the respect, the relationship, and understanding that this
Mhm.
is someone that I could probably talk to because they're hearing me.
Yes, and I would say, just to add a little bit, for me, it's
Mhm.
more of giving space for that person to be vulnerable. A
Mhm.
lot of times we're not vulnerable because we're afraid of judgment.
Mhm.
So a lot of times that's where you'll feel the person holding back, or it's only a surface conversation that you're having. And if you're not allowing others to have the opportunities to tell you whatever they are feeling low about, because all vulnerabilities are not something to um, make you feel good, right? So you have to allow that person to have that moment. They can say, you know what, yeah, I'm not that great at this, or this really happened to me, and it's taken me down this road or this path. Then you can give them that empathy and say, you know what, I get it. Maybe I haven't gone through it, but I can see how that would make you feel a certain way. But don't worry about that. This is a judgment-free zone, or
Mhm.
however that is. But you're giving that person the grace to be them, just like how you would want someone to give you the grace to be you. That's where
Mhm.
vulnerability really allows you to build a more intimate and real connection, is that you're allowing each other the space to not feel good, but you're not coming down on them. You're not there to lecture them. A lot of times that's something else that I see. People are thinking that if someone tells you something, they want your feedback. Not necessarily.
Mhm.
Maybe they only want a sounding board. They don't want to hear a response back. So you have to really also take that into consideration. What is it that the person is coming to you for? Or even when you're saying, how is your day? You're
Mhm.
right. A lot of people, a lot of people have taken that term or that phrase as a hello.
Yeah,
It's
just
not the
about.
same.
Hey, how's your day?
How's your day?
And
How's
they
your
still
day
move.
and a hello are two totally different things. So you should be expecting two totally different things. But in the world where we're always passing each other, getting to the next place, that's just one thing. How's your day? Good. And we keep it moving, right? But if
Mhm.
someone is really, something's bothering them, and they're like, yeah, things are a little off for me. Were you expecting that? Maybe not. So that's when you start cutting them off and like, oh yeah, I got a meeting to go to, but
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. a lot of the comments as well. Are we back live? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
See you, I hear you.
Yeah, but I don't know what happened. Like it just
I
started.
don't
It
know.
wasn't my it wasn't my connection. Y'all know they always try to talk about my New Jersey Wi-Fi. It wasn't my connection.
Allegedly. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
because
folks cannot see or hear us. Oh, hold
just
on.
hear you, but the chat coming through. Let's blow
Wait,
this chat
I
up.
think we're back. I think we're coming
Are we
back.
back? Are we back? Are we back? Let me look on my other page. See, we back. Yeah, we back on the other page. I see it say live. So we back. We back.
And then I think we disappeared again. I don't know what's happening.
Oh, we back. We back. We back.
I don't know what's
No,
happening,
we
but on
back.
my
We back. I
end,
see us. I see us. We back. We back. I can
okay.
see now. I can see now. What's up, peeps?
Good Lord,
The
folks.
vulnerability cops. I put in the chat. I told the vulnerability cops came. They came. Let's lock
Because
this up.
I think it stopped recording us. I don't know what's going on. But okay, guys.
Anyway.
Hi.
Yes, we're back. Yes, we're back. So
Yeah, we
where
winging it
like
at
I
this
used to say
point.
to my kids when they was younger, what I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted.
Ooh, child.
Right there, and I'm gonna let you know about this. I'm gonna let you know about this. Like you got
Ooh,
800 million people
child.
on here. Ain't nowhere in the world you shouldn't have the capacity where we can do a live.
Between them and Restream
Yeah,
and the internet god, somebody doing something. I don't know
yeah,
what's
yeah. It's a
happening.
vulnerability cops. They don't like when we talk about that. They don't like when they talk like that. They get in their feelings. They get in their feelings. So where were we?
Child, at this point, I'm like,
We never like
oh,
that, man. We never like that.
we were talking about folks not giving each other space and taking the term or the phrase "How are you?"
Yes,
as the
yes.
same as "Hi," and it's
Hi, how
not.
you doing? And we've internalized
Yes,
that as conversationalism, and that conversation that we take instead of it being for an opportunity to us to really make a connection, because it's really truly what it is. When you ask that question, it's an entrance, it's a
right,
doorway, and what you need to do is have the grace enough to allow someone to walk through that door. And though it may not always be timely, because we're so much on time, I think we covered a lot of that yesterday in our live with Christina. Sometimes we have to take those breaths and say, okay, maybe this individual needs to hear. Maybe they need to someone to hear them. Maybe it's something that they want to say that they want to get off their chest, and this allows us that opportunity to not only build connection, but we also build a relationship. When you're actually intentionally stay there and hear what someone says,
hmm,
that says something about you and your character, and that
yeah,
individual that's talking picks that up, and you never know where
hmm,
those things have led or lead to or where they may lead to, and everything is not always what can we get out of it, the reciprocation. I think I can't go back that far in the comments because we lost some, but I think Carla has said something about that being kind of like opening to listening, that's and creating that space. That's the way that we can be vulnerability reciprocal to those who
right.
trying to send us those symbols. So it's a lot that's involved with that, but it's a continuation of practicing at that. And if you take away the mindset of I'm gonna get hurt doing this, and you take away the mindset, I'm gonna grow. I often use that closet analogy because it's the best fitting one that I know. If you got the
Mm,
key to the closet and you lock yourself in, you only avail yourself to the things that are in that closet. And though you are protected from the things outside of the closet, there's no room to grow in the closet. So therefore, I've put it on a scale and I say, okay, vulnerability that hurts, vulnerability that grows. And my scale is always tipped heavier with the growth. So I
yes.
just go through that. It's life, really. You live in life. Live in life. Go
Hmm.
back to some situations in your life and you say, okay, this was a point where I didn't do this there. It was no growth there. That's how vulnerability works as well. And that's how it works with individuals. So
Speak on that, and
yeah.
then I love the story that you always say, and it brings us into our third point, where you have to be
Mm,
consistent on
yeah.
who you are. Stay who you are. If it don't fit, let it go. And what does that mean? If you're not the person to always scream and have a high energy, and you're bouncing all over the place when you're
Mhm.
doing a Zoom, or you're at a, if you were becoming a speaker, you're not one of those type of speakers that's running through the crowd and jumping up and down. Like, if that's not you, then be who you are and be consistent at it, because that's how people stay with you and they start to trust you. Carl mentions how someone reached out to him and has been saying, they were following him for a year and they were just waiting for him to switch up. And switch up means they would wait for him to change how he was. And when he stayed consistent for over a year, they were like, oh, okay, so you're legit. That's what people are looking for. People are looking for you to be legit and stay who you are. You see a lot of the blowbacks with a lot of women who were being these what women boss or female boss, lady boss, all of that, and they got a lot of blowback because they ended up not being really those type of personalities. They really weren't
Mhm.
there to uplift each other. They weren't there to uplift others. They were there just to grab the bag, and they saw an opportunity through those hashtags, and then they ended up not really being who they were, and they got called out for it.
Yeah, it's a consistent, and I think that was one of probably the weirdest, but the most truthful and eye-opening things. Because a lot of times we do things with an intention that maybe we're not off-putting into that intention, but we're seeking a specific goal in that
Mm-hmm.
intention of why we do, and not all the time do they align with those who we trying to do things for. And I just stayed true to what I wanted to get out there, what I wanted to present, which was also just an extension of who I am. So when I put that arm out there, and it
Right.
was like, and I get amazed by that every day that I think about that. For someone to have the patience and the latitude and the fortitude to follow your content for an hour without engaging, I mean, not an hour, for without
Mm-hmm.
engaging, without putting anything in there, without nothing in the comments, and I'm a researcher. So I did go look for this guy. I did look him up and I searched, and after a while, it became kind of like I'll find him somewhere. Like, I couldn't find him. It took me a couple of days to look through things, and I find him. I went back to the DM that he sent me, and the funny thing about it, that's all he sent me in the DM. He said that's all he sent me is that he was watching. I'm like, okay, you watching? Of course, the DM I hit him about 6, 7 questions. I'm like, okay, but did it resonate with you? How can I help you? Is there something I said? The whole thing that we go through. Things. I was like, oh, well, maybe this dude is a Russ thing. But the way that he left it in the wording, it kind of felt different to me than if I for someone, that was doing those kind of things. It felt so different to me. And, I just couldn't find it. I went back to the DM. I said, well, you haven't responded in a minute, but I just want to ask you this question. It's like, why did you put that in chat or whatever? And I think it was not that morning, but later on that day, he answered. And he said, I was just watching to see if he changed. And that was it from there. So I took it from there. Like, okay, change. I'm going. I'm going. How
That's
things are. Yeah, how things are. But he said, no, he said, I just was watching you over this period of time to see if it was going to change, to see if your message was going to change, to see if the thing you said was going to change, to see if the message that you had is. So that was it. And taking that, it
Carl,
didn't
I think it's
change.
breaking up. Carl,
Is it
it
breaking
looks
up?
like it's
Yeah.
really breaking up. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Uh,
Okay.
okay, let's wrap up. Let's call. Let's close
See,
out.
you
I
can't
don't
hear
see
you.
what's going on.
Okay. I don't know
They
what's
can
going on. Listen,
see us. They can't hear us. Let's just wrap up. Let's just wrap up.
yes.
Come back next week.
Yeah, come back next week. It's a new Friday, y'all. So you can see us and hear us, hopefully,
Yeah.
because we're going to get on the horn with LinkedIn, reach the whole line.
Yeah, you can close this out, Carl, because I'm just trying to figure out what's going on over here.
All right, guys. Thank y'all for coming out. I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure what's going on. But we thank you all. And please come back and see us next week. That's a shame because we received 100 chats. Audio's acting up. They just telling us all the good bad news. So we'll see you guys next week. Peace. Deuces.
Right. Oh.